I don't like to see people get fired. I have fired a few people in my life, not too many, not been in that position too many times, but I've done it myself. And even if those people, and they did earn that firing, it's not necessarily a great thing to see, especially if the effort's there. If the effort is there and we're talking about good, honest people, then I really despise firing. However, there are businesses to be run. The Florida football brand. What do we think of the Florida football brand? Because here in the last decade plus now, we're looking at a number of coaches who have faltered at Florida. I'm not going to say failed. I'm going to say fail in the tenure currently of Billy Napier, which appears to be at an end. So he's not going to have an opportunity, it appears, to turn the corner and right the wrongs and build the program. It does not appear at this point. I'm not going to announce his firing because it has not been announced, but we are on Billy Napier watch here at the Voice of College Football, and we appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Thanks for stopping by. Leave those comments and questions. We will be here for an hour with all of you. We do the college football show every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which typically has no limit to how long we're on with you. It's the limitless show based on your contributions and support. However, today we've got meetings to tend to a little bit later. So back to the Florida football brand. We're looking at a program now that is working on a third coach, certainly, maybe 4 consecutive, based on your expectations, based on your standards for Florida football. We are working on possibly 4 consecutive coaches who have not meet the standard, have not met the standard. And again, I'm not going to use the term fail with Will Muschamp. I'm not going to use the term fail with Jim McElwain, because they did accomplish at Florida. They did finish with winning records. They did win division championships. Will Muschamp's team in 2012 was certainly the best Florida team that we've seen since Urban Meyer won a national championship in 2008. That team came extremely close to playing for a national championship. Go look it up. Go look at the results, even though historically, or the history books, the conversation about 2012 does not include Florida. That team was awfully close against what was the most difficult scheduling college football of playing for a national championship, for a BCS championship at the time. So Will Muschamp's tenure did not end well. It was not received well. However, he did build a powerhouse team there temporarily and built tremendous defensive units. Jim McElwain took advantage of a weak SEC Eastern Division at the time. This was pre-Kirby Smart. This was pre a whole lot of things going on in the SEC Eastern Division. This was a division that included the likes of course, Missouri entering the league and having won division championships in 2 of the first 3 seasons, in which Mizzou came from the Big 12, which seemed unfathomable at the time. And we're talking about, again, the end of Mark Richt and the beginning of Kirby Smart starting in 2016. And so Jim McElwain actually went to SEC championship games, but his teams faltered and showed at the end of the season against the likes of Florida State and typically Alabama in SEC championship games that they were not really that good. They were decent teams. They were defensive-oriented teams that he inherited that had a weak quarterback play, weak offensive line play, did not have the kind of weapons that we saw at Florida a decade earlier. Dan Mullen came in and he immediately improved this program, immediately, because Dan Mullen knows how to scheme an offense. He knows how to prepare for games. Those are his strengths. So he basically took the same talent, and this is before the defense was wrecked. The defense was still good especially early in Dan Mullen's tenure. And then, of course, he knows how to select a quarterback, coach up the quarterback, get the most out of a quarterback, and get the most out of a game plan. And he can call plays. And Dan Mullen went to BCS Bowl, BCS Bowl, BCS Bowl. 3 consecutive BCS Bowls for Dan Mullen. 2018, a success. 2019, a success. That wasn't that long ago. 2020, a success, the COVID year. But still, they played as well against Alabama as anybody in the country. Actually played tougher against Alabama than even Notre Dame and Ohio State did in the playoffs. The season ended, though, with a thump as Dan Mullen's team left the locker room, left the program, didn't play for him in the Cotton Bowl, and they were trounced on national television 55-20. And then 2021 ensued with just all sorts of craziness on the field and off the field. And Dan Mullen could not have tried any harder to implode and announce it to the nation any better than he did. He couldn't have been any bigger of a clown. And then it reflected, of course, on the field, and his team faltered. But shoot, Florida fans would take that Florida football performance of 2021 over anything that we're seeing right now. So in step Billy Napier. And I don't know Billy Napier. I've never spoken to him. Of course, my career has taken me away from being close to the coaches. But at one point, I never had any kind of close personal relationship with any coaches, but I knew many of them by a first name basis. But I've been removed from all of that. So there are no current coaches that I can think of that I really know in any such way. But by all accounts, Billy Napier is a good guy. He is trying to do things the right way. He treats people the right way. He's a darn good football coach based on what he was able to accomplish at Troy or at Louisiana. And so Billy Napier is faltering, failing, will probably not get another game at this point. I don't know what Florida's schedule is in regards to, we will pull up Florida's schedule in regards to what the future holds and where their bye week lies, because you got to look out for those bye weeks. When there's a coach on the hot seat, look out for the bye week because it gets administration some time to act. But we're in a football season in which we've only played 3 games, and Florida's season's about as bad as anybody could have forecasted. We all looked at late October and throughout November to forecast the demise of Billy Napier and try to rack up the most miserable of records for Florida football. But they've jumped to the start. They have jumped out of the gate even more miserable than anticipated. They were just a 3-point underdog against Miami in the opener, and they were not competitive in any such way. Horrible, horrible. They were in the game at halftime, and they were being completely trucked at that point. And then the score indicated the dominance by Miami. We don't know if Miami's a great football team. I somewhat doubt it. I think they're a really good team. They're probably one of the 10 best teams in America, but they're not a great team. And Florida was not competitive at home in a game that was supposed to be competitive. Billy Napier's done a decent job of recruiting. His recruiting rankings are strong. They're not elite. They're not going to compete with Georgia and Alabama in the conference, but they're strong. His transfer portal additions have been, I'll put in the decent range as well. We can certainly point to a number of players. We see Ricky Pearsall and his bright future in the NFL, even though he's injured currently, as a second-round selection, as being one of the best gets of the Billy Napier era, and Montrell Johnson, running back, of course, who came with Billy Napier from Louisiana. So that's not necessarily a difficult acquisition, but he was able to bring some of his best players from Louisiana to Florida. But the play on the field has just been incredibly bad, incredibly bad. And apparently, these players like Billy Napier. Apparently, they want to play hard for him. They practice hard. Apparently, I'm just gaining this from various articles out there, that there is no culture failings, meaning players get along, players show up at meetings, players abide by the rules, players don't do anything foolish off the field for the most part. You got 105 18 to 21-year-olds. Yes, they're going to do stupid things, but I mean egregious things. Those aren't happening in Florida, apparently. Billy Napier's running a decent program. He's running a decent program of directing young men to do the right thing and be decent citizens and students, apparently. Unfortunately, that's not what he's paid to do. He's paid to do that, to not get in the way of winning football games and championships. So you have to do the latter for sure if you're at Florida. And then you have to supplement that with the good things that Billy Napier is apparently doing. So he's got something in place there in a sense, but it is not translating to the field. Why? Florida's got a roster that's probably roughly in the range of the 15th best roster in the country, by all accounts, including transfer portal additions. They selected a quarterback last year in Graham Mertz, who turned in a strong season. Graham Mertz was not the problem last year in 2023. He wasn't one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I'm not going to sell Graham Mertz as that. But in 2023, completion percentage, extremely high, I believe. It set an SEC record. 20 touchdowns, 3 picks. They had a passing game that was formidable. The defense has just, they have not been able to solve the defense since Jim McElwain left and at the start of the Dan Mullen era. So I'm going to pinpoint Dan Mullen as being an issue with the defensive demise of Florida football, because we know Dan Mullen is an offensive coach and the defensive performances under Will Muschamp were exceptional almost across the board. Go back. Will Muschamp's issue was he never found a quarterback, couldn't coach a quarterback, couldn't run an offense, didn't get the right OCs in play, and that was pretty apparent. And the offensive line play just crashed under Will Muschamp, but the defenses were really good. And again, that 2012 team, if you want to look for the last Florida team that could compete nationally every week, all the time, muscle in the trenches, athleticism, everything, that 2012 team could have played for a national championship. They were that good. They lost a turnover, marred, rainy game, defensive game, weird plays against Georgia. Otherwise, they would have been playing Alabama. Well, they would have been playing 2012. They would have been playing Alabama in the SEC championship game. They lost one game. They lost one game and lost a tie to Georgia. So that Alabama-Georgia epic 2012 SEC championship game, that could have easily been Florida. That's the last near great Florida team. The Dan Mullen teams were good. They were really good. They won the Orange Bowl a couple times. They had really good teams, 2018, 2019, even the 2020 team. Again, it didn't end well, but and then Dan Mullen Dan Mullen's an awkward guy. Dan Mullen's a strange guy. Dan Mullen can coach a football team. Dan Mullen doesn't like to recruit. That's not good. That doesn't work. Who knows what Dan Mullen would be doing right now with the transfer portal? Dan Mullen might be exceeding in the transfer portal, which by all accounts, based on what we're seeing in Colorado and Florida State and what we saw at Michigan State briefly under Mel Tucker, that's not the best way and the best path to sustainable success. But I would think that Dan Mullen would post some really good seasons at Florida like he was. He only had one down season. And again, that down season was much better than what we're seeing right now. But man, I went over the Miami game. I did not see one play of the Samford game, but Florida can just basically, I could have coached that game and they would win 45-7. DJ Lagway, much anticipated, heralded 5-star quarterback, of course, got his opportunity because of the opponent, but more so because Graham Mertz was hurt. And Lagway started the game against Samford and lit them up for 456 yards passing. And of course, the projected firing of Billy Napier, we don't know what that does for the relationship DJ Lagway. I've heard that that's actually a factor, and they would be more apt to lose DJ Lagway if they lose Billy Napier. But you cannot, regardless of how good DJ Lagway is, let that get in the way of doing what is best for the football program. And there just doesn't seem to be any way out. So if by all accounts, everything is true about Billy Napier doing all the right things, being just an excellent leader of the football program in every such way, I feel bad that it's not working out because that's not always the case with the head coach. But you got to win football games because he's being paid a lot of money. Otherwise, you give him a teacher's salary, a professor's salary at the university, whatever that is these days, a couple $100,000. And, you just let him talk to the players and coach them on how to be good young men. But you have to win football games at Florida. But Florida's not been an elite program since Urban Meyer stepped off campus. And again, they've shown us surges. Will Muschamp surge. Dan Mullen, couple seasons of a surge of playing close to elite football. But man, this program has not been the same. So depending on how you rate and rank Dan Mullen's tenure, which I would consider to be a C+ or a B-, it is not Florida's standard when you put it all together. But my goodness, double-digit wins 2 consecutive years, probably would have gotten there had it not been a COVID year in 2020. And then one bad year, he's on the cusp. The other ones were, I don't want to call them failures, but they did not meet expectations. But we're working on 4 consecutive coaches at Florida. Maybe there's more there. Scott Strickland has been the athletic director there at Florida for how long? And he's not hiring the right coaches. So why would he still be the athletic director? I don't care about any other sports. I'm not saying that they're not important, but I don't care about them. And of course, football is first and foremost everywhere. That's not named Duke or Kentucky. So football's almost everything. The athletic director has to get the football right. The other stuff is nice, and I'm sure I don't keep up with it, but Florida has always excelled in other sports, Olympic sports, baseball, etc. Don't believe the basketball team's been much for a long time either. So I don't have a complete handle on the AD's performance and what else is going into that. But I know he's been around for a while. And I don't necessarily know that he's hiring the right guy. Chip Kelly almost had this job, of course. So Chip Kelly, let's see, was that was the Dan Mullen hire? That could have been Chip Kelly. And then this go around, I'm not remembering, maybe some of you do. It would be fairly easy to look up who else was in the running besides Billy Napier for this job. Let's see, that would have been at the end of 2021 going into 22. Do appreciate all the people have stopped by. We've got James Scott. Yeah, you don't throw the opponent's shoes. That's not the best thing to do. Maybe you like them. Maybe you just feel like throwing something. Maybe, you just have a foot fetish. Regardless of what the deal is there, that's not the best thing to do. And then when you're the head coach, it's not the best thing to dodge the questions and make believe that you didn't see it and you have no idea what happened. And I didn't quite see it. That was the rhetoric from Dan Mullen after that game. And sorry, everyone, I was alluding to that comment from James. Talkers Pitt has to feel good about a 3-0 start, and especially the last two wins, because they were dead in the water against Cincinnati and somehow rallied 28-27. I did not see that game. I saw a handful of plays, but I did see wire to wire, arguably the best game on Saturday. Did not miss a play of the backyard brawl. That was exceptional. What a game. And Pitt comes back from 10 down in the final 4 or 5 minutes to win 38-34. Eli Holstein, could not be more impressed with him. Could not be more impressed with wide receiver play in the last few minutes of the game, making plays downfield. Defense made stops when it needed to. Pitt's a decent football team. They a great football team? No. Nowhere close. But maybe they make some noise in an ACC that looks like it's pretty bad. So Pitt's also got a schedule that sets up really nicely, headed toward a date with Clemson in week 10. A lot of Syracuse and Georgia Tech kind of games, which they could lose all of those. They are not above any of those teams, but they are not below any of those teams. So Pitt's one to keep an eye out for. They've already won and matched their season total from 2023 with 3 wins. So remember what we say during the offseason, plus or minus 3. What's the plus or minus 3 mark? Plus or minus 3 is the number of teams that increase or decrease their win total from one season to the next by at least 3 games. It's substantial. It is substantial. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. We've got a nice little gathering here that we need to multiply by about 100 here in the next few months. So bring your questions and comments, of course, but also bring a friend or 2 or 50 with you, because it would be good to be talking to a couple thousand people here live and then get it out to 20, 30, 40,000. And we're not pulling those numbers. And that is the goal. And so we will need to do that at some point. Don't make me get a job, folks. That's the bottom line. Feng Wei. I wonder if KU will be handing out crying towels at the next home game. I don't get that reference. Crying towels. Is there some kind of crying incident somewhere? The almost had them crowd. South Carolina almost had LSU. TCU almost had UCF. They let me down. I picked TCU to win the game. It was basically a pick'em game. They were up 28-7. You don't blow 28-7 games, even in the Big 12. UCF comes back and wins that one. South Carolina blew that game against LSU, made so many incredibly boneheaded plays in that game to lose it. Look at my instant analysis. It's posted. South Carolina could be 3-0 very easily. They've got one particular player, Kyle Kennard, really good defensive lineman. Might be an outside linebacker, defensive end type. That's what he is, one of those two. Don't know what they exactly consider him, but he plays off the edge. And he was blowing up plays. Unfortunately, horse collar negates a pick six. And then at the end of the game, South Carolina could have put the game away. 1-score lead, another pick six. This has to be unprecedented in the history of college football. 2 pick sixes negated by the same player. And both were sort of after the whistle kind of plays. They were within the whistles, but they were not, procedural kind of things. They were unnecessary roughness was the second one, and horse collar tackling, which, based on the explanation during the broadcast, I did not go back and look at it. I just saw the play. I was watching that game wire to wire. Those are the 2 games I watched wire to wire: West Virginia Pitt and South Carolina LSU. But that the horse collar was of a nature, of course, they revised that rule in the offseason where that would not have been a horse collar in 2023. Franklin Fanatic, Penn State back on the field this week. I believe they're playing some kind of pushover this week, not a significant game for Penn State before they dive into Big Ten play. So we had a lot of bye weeks here in week 3. No USC, no Penn State, no Ohio State. A lot of other teams took a vacation this past week, but are back on the field for week 4. I am intending on, I definitely will be comparing the conferences. I've already taken those notes. I've gone through all the results of all the games between the conferences. So be looking out for that. Conference comparison and rankings. The conferences, they've already played roughly, everybody's played a little over 40 games non-conference, meaning every conference has played 40 games outside the conference and played somewhere in the 10 to 12 to 13 range against the other power conferences. So time to add it all up, put it in context, and rank the conferences. Also, we will release power rankings as well here at the Voice of College Football Conference power rankings, but the top 25 that actually makes sense. Yes, usually released on Sunday, always released on Sunday. My apologies. It will be premiering at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So right at the time that we leave here, we're releasing the top 25 that actually makes sense. So be looking out for that. You will be seeing some teams, if you're not familiar with the top 25 that actually makes sense. So much like life itself and society itself, what is on the surface and what is considered to be the norm is not the best. It's not functional. It's not the best. And so we provide the best rankings. That's all there is to it. They are the most logical rankings. They are not a rankings of the best teams. They are a ranking of the best results, the best resumes. So let's check that out. So we get together every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time is the place to be, right here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis is what we provide. You just have to provide your eyes and ears. And the Amazon link is good as well. When you shop on Amazon, please use our link. I've explained this many times. I probably need to do a tutorial about it. But that is the one way that you can contribute financially to the Voice for College Football without spending a penny. You might as well take Amazon's money and give 3, 4, 5%, depending on the item, to us. Why would you give all that money to Amazon? They already have trillions, not talking billions. They have trillions of dollars. So why would you give all your money? If you spend $100 at Amazon, why would you give $100 to Amazon? You could give 5 to the Voice of College Football. And then, of course, Amazon gets their 95. But there you go. A lot of people have talked over the weekend about the Kentucky decision, Mark Stoops punting with, I don't have the specifics, so I should have the specifics in front of me if I'm going to criticize. I don't have the exact game time, the exact down and distance. I believe it was 4th and 8. I was watching the game, 4th and 8, I believe. And they were out near midfield, still in their territory, I believe, somewhere around their 45. Okay, you're down 13-9. You got to go for it there. That's all there is to it. You are putting the ball in the hands of a team that just scored a touchdown to take the lead, and forget what happened over the course of the night in which Kentucky's defense played exceptional football. You're still playing one of the best offenses in college football. Yes, I said one of the best offenses in college football. Did they look like it that night? No. You were still playing the top-rated quarterback in the nation, the top 5 rated offensive line in the nation, and plenty of weapons all over the place. Okay. You had played an exceptional game, but your defense was starting to wear down. You gave up your first touchdown drive. On top of that, just do the math with, you need to take advantage. This is what the analytics have basically pointed out in all of this in terms of keeping the football. That once you give away the football, the yardage is not significant. It's not insignificant, but it has been valued throughout the years way too much. And there was a point in time in which the yardage, the field position game in football was always valued and still should be valued to a certain extent, but nowhere close to the way it was valued years ago. Because number one, there was a different game being played. There wasn't the explosive plays. There wasn't the time management, the clock precision that there is now. Teams didn't march down the field in 35 seconds and score touchdowns. That did not happen in 1975. So the mindset of playing field position made a lot more sense. But even then, they botched it from time to time because they didn't realize that, hey, we're at a point in the game, there's not much time. And your ability to produce a 4th and 5, 4th and 8, whatever the situation, is a greater probability to get to a win than it is for you to punt the ball away where you may never get the ball back. And all you're gaining is 30 or 35 yards, but you're losing all that time. You're losing your opportunity, which is the best right now, to continue the drive. I know it's an all or nothing, and the risk, it's the risk that gets in everybody's heads and the coach's head, because it's an all or nothing right now. If we don't get this, boy, we're screwed. They got the ball at the 45. Well, if Georgia's going to march for a touchdown, the game's over anyway. But if they kick a field goal, first of all, they're not in field goal range. Secondly, even if they kick a field goal, you've not lost the game. Let's say they don't get it. It's 4th and 8. Let's say Georgia gets a first down. And then they kick. There was about, 3.5 minutes left in the game? Say Georgia Kentucky's got to use timeouts. Georgia gets a first down. Georgia kicks a field goal. I'm talking almost worst case scenario. Georgia kicks a field goal. There's still a minute left. 90 seconds. You're down 7. You get the kickoff. You got to drive for a touchdown. 90 seconds. No timeouts. I don't even know if you'd be able to. You would have more time than that if you used all your timeouts. You'd either have no timeouts and 2.5 minutes on the clock, especially with this 2-minute timeout now. Kentucky still would have 2+ minutes on the clock and no timeouts, or they would have had all their timeouts and less time. And down 7. And that's if they would have given up the 12 to 15 yards to give up the field goal. Go for it. Somebody needs to be hired on these teams that knows analytics. And of course, it's still the coach's decision, but to present the analytics to the coach, that was not good. Now, on the other hand, if Kentucky would have done what they did all night for the most part, they would have stopped Florida, or got Florida on the brain, of course. If they would have stopped Georgia immediately, they get the ball back at roughly the same position, and they probably would have used their timeouts, stopping Georgia, used at least 2 timeouts, if not 3, to get the ball back with probably 2.5 minutes left in the game at their own 40. Yeah, you would think that if they pin Georgia down to the 15, let's say on a punt, then they get the return punt. If they shut Georgia down, let's say they punt at a 4th and 5. Yeah, they get the ball back at their own 30, 35-yard line. They got 2.5 minutes. They got no timeouts, and they've got to score a touchdown to win the game. So they got to score a touchdown regardless. So think about that. Even giving up the field goal, shoot, you put yourself in a situation where you either tie the game to go into overtime or you go for the win on the 2-point conversion. So that makes it even more egregious because you had to score a touchdown anyway. Yeah, that was a bad decision. James picked UCF to win this game. I knew it would be a great game. I was pretty confident that it was just basically, okay, there's going to be a lot of offense. Neither team can play defense, and it'll be a toss-up. And I basically picked, even though this goes against my fiber in regards to home, away, I see people make predictions from time to time based on the season or just particular games. And there's this assumption that, okay, if the teams are generally even, I'm always going to pick the home team. I hate to hear that because it's way overplayed. Way overplayed. Is home field advantage a thing? Of course it is. There is home field advantage, but it is way overestimated. Way overestimated. But I went with it just thinking, I know who plays for these teams. I don't know how good these teams are. I know that they're generally just both marginal teams. And I saw TCU play much of the game against Stanford, which for them to struggle against Stanford, that should have been a warning sign to me. And I was high on UCF in the offseason in regards to KJ Jefferson, who I am a big fan of KJ Jefferson, have been for years, and RJ Harvey. That should have swayed me on the UCF side. KJ Jefferson, Gus Malzahn, that offense, I really pinned the excitement wild card factor on UCF in the offseason. What pulled me back on UCF in terms of predicting them with a major record surge and contending in the Big 12 is that they've got a tough Big 12 schedule. Well, they've navigated the first game on the road, so good for them. But UCF with a difficult Big 12 schedule. Otherwise, I would have had them making some noise. Better than anything that I have experienced or heard or seen here in the few hours that I've been up since 8 o'clock this morning. It is great to see our buddy Joey Foster up and at 'em. Good morning, Joey. Great to see you. Oh, I'm sorry, James. Yeah, I'm sorry. Kentucky was down 1 point. It was 13-12. I had 13-9 stuck in my head. They were down 13-9. So there's another decision that they made. Actually, I agreed with this one, though, because there was thought on the previous drive or a couple drives before, they were down 13-9, got into the red zone, had a 4th and somewhat manageable, and they went for the field goal. But I agreed with that because I thought their ability to go down there and score a touchdown is going to be minimal. So they're going to have to, okay, yeah, the field goal. My apologies on the score. I forgot about the second field goal. I was thinking it was 13-9. It was 13-12. Whoa, that is a dark horse pick there out of Peninsula. Eli Holstein might be a dark horse candidate for the Heisman. Well, he's either not a candidate or he is the darkest of horses for the Heisman. But hey, that would be cool. That would be fine. I was asked on here by I'll get to that comment in just a second. But I was asked by our buddy Steve Merrill from Wager Talk, who finally missed a prediction with our under the radar selection. If you are into that sort of thing, meaning predictions and making money, then please join us on Patreon or as a YouTube member right here. You get my lousy predictions. They've been lousy for 2 weeks, but I'll stand by my 40-year record, which is maybe a smidge under exceptional, but it's close. But 2 bad weeks. But Steve Merrill, who was on a 23-5 run against the spread, missed on the Duke UConn game against the spread, but 23-6 against the spread. But Steve Merrill of Wager Talk asked me about a week before the season because he had pointed out that a number of Heisman winners over the last 10 to 15 years were dark horses. They weren't the guys at the top of the board of the odds list at the beginning of the season. They were guys down the list. So he said, give me a dark horse. And I said, Miller Moss of USC. So I'm going to stay with that one. The way he threw the ball on opening night against LSU was ridiculous. And yes, I understand what I said when I said 13-9. I will not say that I will not say those two numbers together the rest of the show. My apologies to the West Virginia fans out there. My greetings to the Pitt fans who love to hear that. That made their 4-7 season. That made their Dave Wannstedt led season. Was Dave Wannstedt, right? 2007. Yes. Wow. We could have had a Ohio State West Virginia national championship game. We could have had another Ohio State national championship. All right. JR's in the house. Check out JR's. JR, I don't want to give a spoiler here. Indiana is ranked. They are ranked. The premiere comes out at 11 a.m. So we are just 15 minutes away from the top 25 that actually makes sense. And I'll give you that one spoiler alert. Indiana is ranked. So get ready for that. They have earned it. The clowns that vote for the AP and the coaches polls, they're not all clowns, but some of them clearly are. They don't know anything about college football, but I'm sure many of them, and I'm sure if I went through the list, I know a portion of them are respectable, diligent, hardworking, knowledgeable people, but many of them are clowns, or they're just too focused on what they're doing just to throw in a vote. Because I experienced this when I worked in Mississippi, that these writers should not be voting for the top 25. Now, they have access to more information today than they did then in regards to keeping up with the rest of college football, but they're absorbed with their team. That's what they do. They cover the guy that covers Mississippi State football. He's not watching the national scene. He could not tell you who the quarterback had. I was going to give a bad example, actually. He could tell you the quarterback at Washington because it's Will Rogers who played at Mississippi State. He could not tell you the quarterback at Stanford. He could not tell you the quarterback at Illinois. I experienced this firsthand for 7 years I was on the college football beat, going to the coaches' news conferences, going to all the games, going to all the locker rooms after the game. When I was doing that for 7 years, I experienced that from talking to AP writers. They don't know what's going on across college football. And again, I'm going to assume that's improved because of the information flow is more prominent. I love this comment. Joey telling us that West Virginia would have beaten Ohio State like a drum, but I guess we will never know. I can't think of a time that West Virginia would have ever beaten Ohio State like a drum. That's like an alternate universe or something. Take any Ohio State team, take any West Virginia team. Basically, Ohio State's going to win 98% of the time. That's the history of the two programs. Yeah. All right. Nah, I don't know that would be any better, JR. National writers, maybe not. Yeah. So we'll stick to our rankings. I don't even know what the AP rankings are. The only time I ever have looked at the AP rankings is when somebody has pointed something out to me, and I thought, well, this is a good time to make fun of the AP rankings. Other than that, we've arrived at a place in college football where, number one, they're meaningless. And number two, again, they don't make sense. They don't make sense. Now, that doesn't mean that none of them make sense. That means that the process doesn't make any sense. Now, they come out with rankings that, sure, most of them make sense. But here's the clear indicator. I'm sorry, Joey, I was a little harsh on West Virginia. Of course, there have been West Virginia teams that could beat Ohio State teams. Anyway, I understand Todd Beckman was shaky, but yeah, let's not talk too much about 2007. I even think, actually, the 2008, if you go back and do the revisionist history, the 2008, not what happened on the field, but in regards to if you're trying to be the revisionist history guy that I am and go back through the seasons and right the wrongs, the 2008 is just as crazy as 2007. Just as crazy. Why was USC not playing in a national championship game? Why was Texas not playing in a national championship game? 2008, yes, in terms of the revision of the history and righting the wrongs. Where's my national championship list? No, that's for the offseason. But man, there's your national championship list of the real national champions as designated here at the Voice of College Football. And we will sort through all of this in the offseason. I made it all the way back to 1974. So, for example, in 2000, well, I'll go back before the college football playoff era. Of course, all those champions are justified. But what is that? Okay. 2013, one national champion, although there should have been 3 other teams considered to have played Florida State in the championship game. 2012, we got 3 national champions. 2011, we have 3 national champions. 2011, 2010, 1, 2009, 1, 2008, we've got 4 national champions. 2007, we've got 5 national champions. 2006, we've got 2 national champions. And if we make another consideration, we've got to add, if we add them, we've got to add them, 4 national champions. 2005, Texas, great job. You were the 1 national champion. 2004, of course, there's 2. Because we know what happened there. 2003, there are 2, of course. 2002 is just Ohio State. 2001 is just Miami. 2000 is just Oklahoma. 1999 is just Florida State. We were on a run of just having a clear national champion there from 1998 through 2002, 5 consecutive years, just 1 national champion. But all those other years, there's a disputed national championship. And keep that phrase in mind that I just told you. Disputed national champions. I'm not going to explain right now. Just keep that phrase in mind. Just keep that phrase in mind. That's all I'm saying. I'm giving a hint for future weeks and months here at the Voice of College Football. Disputed national champions. And for just about $13, you can be a much better college football fan. Much better. You will win arguments all over the place for a mere $13. That's my hint. Disputed national champions. I'm going to start just posting that all over social media. Disputed national champions. And you will soon find out what that means. All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, this is our show that we do every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we're here 5 days a week with all of you. And the show lasts for as long as you want it to. That's what it comes down to. The show goes for as long as you want it to, except for today. It's usually just Wednesday that we've got an out, a specific out on Wednesday because of the Ohio State show at 11. But I've got meetings today starting at 11, so we're going to wrap it up right here at the Voice of College Football. Again, I have said what I've had to say about Billy Napier. The off-the-field performance should be admired if it's as true to what I have read concerning Billy Napier's above-board actions and approach to coaching his football team and leading a football program and trying to build a football program that, again, has been generally lousy at worst since Urban Meyer left. It has, at its best, been 2 seasons under Dan Mullen, pushing 3, and a Will Muschamp year, near elite. And then if you throw it all together with all those Jim McElwain years where they were a paper champion of the SEC East and they proved to be not even close. They had a score against Florida State. Remember this? They lost 30-2. They were the SEC Eastern Division champs. And then, of course, they played that last game of the year out of conference against Florida State. They lost 30-2. Like they would get trucked in SEC title games by Bama. 54-15 was won. Yes, Florida's been marginal for them, marginal, not championship caliber for more than 15 years now. So is it Billy Napier's fault? I got to think it's deeper than that. 4 consecutive coaches not meeting expectations. Dan Mullen, fringe of expectations. 4 consecutive coaches. Who's going to be the next coach at Florida? We will explore that in future days. And we will also explore, of course, as we do in the cases of Mark Richt, Willie Taggart, Mark D'Antonio, David Shaw, of course, Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley, and on and on and on, Jim Harbaugh and others. When a coach leaves or gets fired, we go live immediately right here at the Voice of College Football. So we're on Billy Napier Watch right here. And we will jump on when the axe finally drops and they gather enough money, which is only $26 million. Shoot, Texas A&M. Shoot, not only did Texas A&M kick, stomp, curb, stomp, kick them to the curb, all those things put together, Florida over the weekend, they're probably laughing at the University of Florida saying, $26 million? You can't come up with that? We find that between the cushions at Texas A&M. We dug up like 80 mil to get Jimbo out of here. Shoot. All right. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. The schedule the rest of the day. Bama live at 6, Texas live at 7. I've got a full day. Top 25 that actually makes sense is coming out in 5 minutes. Then we've got, I'm going to deliver at the point that I can when I get through a bunch of meetings. Best conferences, going to rank the conferences. We've got enough results to do so. And then also we'll go through power rankings conference by conference. Spoiler there, Indiana's going to be really high in the Big Ten power rankings. Indiana's in the top 25. That actually makes sense. Congratulations, Kurt Signetti. You were right. You said Michigan sucks. You were right about that. You said Ohio State sucks. It's a little questionable. You said Purdue sucks. Well, Purdue almost always sucks. So Kurt Signetti, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. See you next time.